A grainy video, a screenshot of shipping manifests, and a string of breathless social posts were all it took. Within hours, the internet was saying that Burkina Faso's young junta leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, had single-handedly blocked a $300 million haul of gold from being seized by the United States, former President Donald Trump, and the International Monetary Fund. For many viewers, the image fit a simple narrative, a tidy story of neo-colonial extraction, an embattled African state, and a dramatic stand against foreign power. For policymakers, miners, and traders, the episode was a flashing alarm. The Sahel's new military rulers are rewriting the rules of resource governance, and global markets are taking notice. The truth sits somewhere between those poles. An unfolding policy fight over mineral sovereignty, real export controls and nationalizations, and a plentiful supply of misinformation that social media happily stitched into geopolitical theater. Headlines travel faster than context. The $300 million figure, round, dramatic, and easy to remember, became a viral meme. On X, WhatsApp chains, and YouTube thumbnails, the number was paired with furious language about theft, ultimatums, and looming sanctions. Part of the reason the story stuck is psychological. Gold means money, and money means power. For countries like Burkina Faso, where gold accounts for a large share of exports and government revenue, any suggestion of foreign control or frozen consignments touches a raw nerve. Add a charismatic young leader like Traoré, whose rhetoric about sovereignty and resource control is blunt and uncompromising, and you have the perfect storm for viral outrage. But why did people leap to a seismic conclusion that presidents and international financial institutions were coordinating to plunder national reserves? Two dynamics were at work. First, the Sahel has endured a decade of contentious resource politics. Gold booms, artisanal mining, weak regulation, and smuggling lanes have created a landscape where accusations of theft and collusion are easily plausible. Second, the information environment is primed for sensationalism. Manipulated video clips of world leaders and unverified screenshots are widespread, and fact-checking groups have repeatedly had to step in to correct viral claims. That combination, structural vulnerability plus a febrile social ecosystem, lowered the bar for the $300 million narrative to feel credible to millions even when direct evidence was thin. Finally, the framing mattered. In narratives that depict African commodities as permanent targets of outside powers, every shipment becomes a potential symbol of a larger, older story, colonial extraction rebranded for the 21st century. Traoré's assertive moves on mining policy give such stories a hook. Whether any single shipment was actually seized becomes less important than the cultural meaning the story communicates. That is why journalists and analysts have been racing not just to verify the shipment claim, but to explain the deeper policy shifts and diplomatic realignments that make the claim resonant. From the outset of his rise, Traoré framed his rule in economic as well as security terms. The junta's rhetoric emphasized sovereignty, ownership of resources, local processing, and an end to what officials describe as predatory contracts. Practically, that rhetoric translated into concrete policy changes. By 2024-2025, the Burkina government had suspended certain artisanal export permits, revised mining codes to expand state stakes, and issued decrees to transfer specific gold assets into state control or into state-backed companies. Reuters and other outlets reported that the formal transfer of 5 mining assets to a state entity was completed mid-2025, a clear, legal step toward concentrating control over extraction and revenue flows. Those measures are not symbolic. They alter legal title, interrupt long-standing business arrangements, and directly affect who counts the gold and who sells it on world markets. The reasons are straightforward. Gold is Burkina Faso's leading export, and in fragile states, the profits from mining flow through a narrow set of firms and intermediaries. By insisting on larger, free-carried interests for the state, by pushing local refining, and by centralizing export licensing, Traoré's government hopes to catch a larger share of the economic rent. Domestically, that narrative has political payoffs. It positions the junta as standing up for national dignity and offers a ready rationale for austerity, security spending, and patronage networks. Internationally, it signals that the country will no longer accept the same terms from foreign investors, a move that attracts both nationalist support and investor nerves. But nationalization is messy, not magical. State control requires managers, technical capacity, and credible legal frameworks to reassure partners and insurers. When governments hastily transfer assets or suspend permits without clear compensation or arbitration routes, companies respond by halting investments, pulling staff, or pursuing legal claims. That reaction shrinks output and shortens the state's immediate revenue base, a difficult trade-off in economies that depend on mineral receipts for budgetary stability. Traoré appears to be wrestling with this calculus. The long-term prize is higher local capture of value, but the short-term costs include capital flight, insurance premium spikes, and the political risk of cross-border tension. When we zoom in on the $300 million claim, the hard, verifiable evidence is thin. Independent reporters and fact-checkers dug through shipping manifests, customs notices, and official statements. They found examples of Burkina consignments delayed or scrutinized, and credible reporting that the junta has tightened control over gold exports. But the escalation to a headline that names Trump or claims an IMF-US joint seizure lacks firm documentary backing in reputable outlets. Fact-checking organizations such as AFP and AfricaCheck flagged manipulated clips and unverified posts, and some viral videos were shown to be edited or taken out of context. That does not mean nothing happened. Rather, it means the nomination of a single, dramatic seizure event tied directly to named international actors could not be substantiated at the time of reporting. There are plausible, verified building blocks behind the rumor. Governments have frozen export permits. Insurers have begun to reprice risk, and mining companies face contract uncertainty. Regional governments have suspended artisanal exports in an effort to formalize and tax the sector, and those moves have real effects on local flows. So while the blockbuster version of the tale, an immediate 300-meter confiscation at a European port orchestrated by the US and IMF, appears to be more narrative than documented fact, the underlying story of contested control over gold exports is very much real. Reporting by Reuters, France 24, and other outlets shows a pattern: stronger state intervention, increasing tensions with foreign operators, and diplomatic maneuvers as countries look for new partners. Why do such rumors spread so easily? Partly because the legal and financial mechanisms that could produce a true seizure, court orders, sanctions, frozen bank accounts, are both arcane and slow. Social media compresses those processes into an immediate moral drama where villains and heroes are easy to name. The resulting mismatch between complex institutional reality and viral storytelling creates an information space where plausible-sounding but unproven claims thrive. For readers and viewers, the responsible response is to demand primary documents, customs records, port authority statements, or bank notices, not just screenshots and pundit commentary. Beyond any single shipment lies a strategic competition playing out across the Sahel. Since 2020 coups in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, the region's military rulers have systematically rethought foreign relationships, rolling back French influence, publicly courting Russian security partners, and alternatingly flirting with Chinese investment and South-South cooperation. That diplomatic pivot changes the calculus for resource extraction. Where Western firms were once default partners, new options appear, sometimes tied to conditional security or infrastructure deals that come with their own cost and strategic strings. Russia's presence, whether through private military contractors or state actors, has been especially consequential in reshaping bargaining power in fragile mining zones. Multinational miners and insurers are responding. The combination of permit suspensions, revised mining codes, and expropriations has led some companies to pause new investment, consider legal action, or renegotiate terms. Financial markets notice. If production dips or if unofficial channels expand, tax revenue shrinks and currency receipts falter. increasing the pressure on governments to find quick substitutes for lost cash. That is where geopolitics and economics collide. Partner countries and firms can offer capital, security, and markets. In return, they often expect privileged access or influence. The Sahelian juntas are playing those offers against one another to maximize leverage. But each choice carries diplomatic and economic consequences. This is also a story about networks, informal trade routes, artisanal miners, local elites, and cross-border smuggling rings. State interventions that ignore those networks can backfire, driving more activity underground rather than formalizing it. Successful resource policy will need to pair stronger state claims with credible local governance. Anti-corruption safeguards and realistic industrial plans, refineries, processing plants, legal export corridors. Otherwise, the immediate political gains of high-profile takeovers risk long-term economic pain. International actors, whether the IMF, Western governments, or new partners, must decide whether to engage pragmatically with these regimes, press for reforms, or deploy punitive measures. Each option reshapes incentives and the trajectory of the region. The image of an Africa breaking free from Western financial structures is powerful and politically potent. There are realistic pathways toward greater autonomy, regional coordination on commodity policy, investment in domestic refining and industrialization, diversification of trade partners, and the creation of pooled sovereign funds to stabilize revenues. Some African states are already pursuing parts of this playbook, changing mining codes to capture more value, negotiating joint ventures that favor local capacity building, and exploring alternative buyers for strategic commodities. Those moves can shrink dependency on single buyers and the dollar-based financial chain that has long structured commodity trade. Yet limits are real and immediate. Global commodity markets are priced in dollars. Supply chains rely on foreign capital and expertise, and international insurers underwrite the transport and sale of precious metals. All levers where Western institutions and markets retain influence. The IMF and global banks provide liquidity that many poor states need to stabilize budgets and support development. Without viable alternatives, either deep regional financial markets or new, reliable non-Western lenders that offer transparent long-term financing, dramatic delinking risks, economic shocks that hurt ordinary citizens. In short, breaking free is possible only through a long, expensive, and institutionally complex transition, not a single dramatic seizure or proclamation. There is a second, political constraint: governance. Nationalization unaccompanied by transparent professional management risks, becoming another vehicle for patronage. To convert resource control into development, countries must improve public financial management, curb corruption, and invest in human capital and domestic industry. External partners can help, but only when they accept stronger local terms and when recipient governments demonstrate credible reforms. For policymakers and citizens watching the Traoré story, the takeaway is blunt. Sovereignty over resources is a first, necessary step. But turning that sovereignty into shared prosperity requires patience, capacity, and a rescoped relationship with the rest of the world. The $300 million headline may have been a blend of rumor and resonance, but it illuminated a real transformation. African resource politics are no longer background noise for Western diplomacy. They are front-stage drama. Watch three things next. 1. Whether Burkina Faso and its peers can operationalize state control without crashing production. 2. How multinationals and insurers respond in contracts and courtrooms. And 3. How replacement partners, Russia, China, and others, translate political goodwill into practical offers that either stabilize or further complicate local economies. Traoré's gambit spotlights a durable truth. Control over gold is not just about bullion in vaults, it is about power, policy, and the painful algebra of development. The outcome will shape not only one country's budget, but the rules of engagement in a region where the 21st century scramble for resources is only getting louder.